Welcome into Eye on Northeast Kansas, the podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Bruner. This is where we recap some of the top interviews that you saw over the past week or so on Eye on Northeast Kansas, the TV show. It comes to you live Monday through Friday, 4 o'clock Central Time from our WIBW TV studios in the capital of Kansas, the great city of Topeka. You can also watch it live streaming every day on WIBW.com as well. As we move through the month of January, we have a lot of guests joining us, community leaders looking ahead to this new year of 2025. Among them, Shawnee County Sheriff Brian Hill. He told us some of the initiatives he'd like to see in the new year. Glad to have you back.
Oh, well, good to be here.
What would be the headline for you as you look back at 2024 for Shawnee County?
I think the headline for me is the technology piece that we've been able to implement in the Sheriff's Office. Our drone program and our crime center has greatly enhanced our investigation capabilities in Shawnee County, and it's really helped us do a lot of successful investigations, actually.
What has changed with the drone program? Because drones have been around for a while. What were you able to do this past year with your drones?
Well, the technology for the drones have gotten a little better. They'll fly a little longer. The infrared things that we're able to utilize. Not too long ago, we assisted PD on a chase with an individual had a firearm. They apprehended him, and he no longer had the firearm. They was able to fly that drone and heat signature out and find that gun laying in the field.
Oh, wow.
So the capabilities of these things are just getting better and better.
Absolutely. And the communications center piece, is this where folks can kind of register? You can look in on different places who sign up with you?
Yes. In fact, we're probably going to start a big push here at the first of the year for people to register their home cameras. I like to think of it's a new neighborhood watch program. So you just let us know that you have a camera. If we have crimes in the area, we can email out, this happened at such and such time, would you check your camera and see if you have anything that would be relevant to us. And a lot of this stuff can be done in just seconds over the internet now. As a former detective, we used to spend days and even weeks knocking on doors asking people if they even had cameras. So the technology is pretty exciting.
And what about how many schools and organizations where you were offering up for folks to be able to allow you to remote in should a situation warrant?
Yeah, a lot of the county schools have come online with that, and that is I think such a safety program. I honestly don't know why you wouldn't. You get an active shooter, those cameras pop up in the dispatch center. So as the deputies are responding, if we do have a threat there, a picture of that individual will be shown to them on their in-car computers. You'll know where they're at, what weapon they're carrying, what they look like, and all of those are valuable tools in a response situation.
Well, we hope you never have to use it, but we're glad it's there if you need to. Heading into 2025, of course, that in-between night, New Year's Eve, what are you going to be doing when it comes to drunk driving on the roads? Well,
we have an overtime program where we have deputies more than our usual staff that will be working specifically looking for impaired drivers. Just as important anymore than the alcohol driver, the impaired driver is becoming, and the unattentive driver, the people on their phones have become a really crash hazard. Unfortunately, we've had 13 fatality accidents in Shawnee County that we've worked this last year. So I believe they're on a rise across the country due to a variety of things. I think a lot of them have been, or at least some of them have been, car pedestrian accidents, and that seems to be on the rise.
Absolutely. Look ahead to 2025. Any new initiatives you care to share? You already mentioned the camera registration.
Well, we got 2 new canines coming on board, and we're excited about them.
Because you just have one retiring, too.
We did just have one retire, and although we're sad to lose that dog, that dog's going to a former handler who is very excited about getting his friend back. So it's a very good deal. Other than that, just adding to the drones, adding to our crime center, and trying to upstaff that crime center response. And we continue to forge our relationship with the Topeka Police Department.
Well, I was going to ask you, you're going to start a new year with a new Topeka Police Chief. The agency, of course, is near and dear to your heart since that's where you had most of your career before you became sheriff. What are you looking forward to? What would you like to see in that relationship with the new chief?
Well, we want to continue where we're going and what we're doing with the PD. We share a lot of the same clientele. We work in the same county together, and our deputies and officers back each other on a nightly basis. So I want to continue that relationship with the PD. They're a good organization.
How are you on staffing right now at the Sheriff's Office?
We're actually in pretty good shape. We are getting close to fully staffed. We have people who are training, and that's a year-long process. So we have a lot of people in cars with people. So I'm looking forward to the next 6 or 8 months so we can get these deputies out on their own. That will allow us to backfill some of the vacancies we have.
And what about on the dispatch side?
We are doing much better with the dispatchers.
Good.
They brought on 5 new people today that are just starting. So we hope to get our dispatch numbers up. I honestly would like to see that dispatch number pushed to 30.
Happy New Year to the dispatch center with 5 new people on board, right?
Yes, yes.
Sheriff Hill, thank you so very much. Happy New Year to you and to everyone within the Sheriff's Office.
Oh, well, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
We appreciate the service of all our law enforcement professionals, and we do plan to keep catching up with Brian Hill, checking in with him throughout the year. Also looking ahead is Juliet Abdul. She is the president of the Topeka Chamber. The Kansas legislature, of course, recently launched their session, and there are a lot of business issues that Juliet is keeping her eye on. She ran down their legislative priority list for us. Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure to always get on here with you, Melissa.
It's only been a couple weeks that the lawmakers have been back. What's your assessment so far?
The first week I always say it's kind of like homeroom. They're getting back, they're getting familiarized with all the places. The newly elected, the re-elected are shifting around new rules. I'm sure you've read some of those that have come out to the public, and now it's really in full swing. They've been a little bit behind on filings for bills, but we're seeing a lot of those come through. I think today alone it was close to about 17 or 18 bills that have been filed. So quite a bit that are coming down the pipeline. Some around taxation, some around insurance laws and rules, and then of course just some broadly speaking that relates to what they would like to see as constitutional amendments.
And you have a few things that you want them to talk about, that you
We
want them to talk
always do.
about. So you're dividing them into areas. What are the 4 areas that you've divided them
So
in?
we have 2, what I like to say is 2 Bibles. So I have one Bible that is the chamber specific one, and then another one that is our regional agenda priorities. Our regional agenda is capturing Manhattan, Emporia, Topeka, and Lawrence, our metal coalition, some shared similarities, shared needs and areas of opportunity, and then our chamber specific one, which is Topeka and Shawnee County. So those 4 areas that you're referencing, I like to call them our themes, right? Kansans work, Kansans are fiscally responsible, Kansans are in it together, and Kansans connect. And really that speaks to interests in infrastructure and funding to our infrastructure and priority needs that we have. It's economic development, workforce development, the components that really create that place that people want to live, work, and play. It's the elements of healthcare and just a sustained, healthier environment and climate that we're in. And then, of course, when we talk about rules, regulation, and taxation on our businesses, making it a lot more friendlier as we continue to move into that direction as a state.
Some things might seem to be in conflict, and how do you weigh those out? So, for example, part of it is talking about support for childcare, whether that be simplifying childcare tax credits, but then you also want to lower taxes. So if you do one, you got to pay for things somewhere. So how do you shake those 2 things out together?
Right. So it's always in any policy issue. So before I really answer that question, any policy issue, there's a pro and there's a con to it, right? It goes back to which do you represent best and how can you make it kosher for everyone, right? Our philosophy when we're looking at tax cuts, and we're not necessarily saying we want a blanket tax cut, but we had a public policy survey that we pushed out to our entire business community, and we had the majority of those surveys respondents say we want a reduction in income tax, we want a reduction in property tax, and then corporate tax. That was the top 3 in that order. And what we always like to say is if you're going to cut taxes, that generally means that you're going to reduce dollars that are coming to your state. So we'd like to also see that reduction in the spending as well. And so you're not creating a situation that's happened in the past for Kansans. Instead, we're trying to be progressively thinking about what could come out of this and how can you circumvent that from actually happening.
The other kind of dichotomy, if you will, is how some of these policies and proposals would seem to align with the conservative Republican leadership that we're seeing in the legislature right now. And by that, I mean cutting the corporate income taxes, business-friendly taxes. But another part of your platform talks about expanding Medicaid, and that is not generally something that the Republican leadership has been supportive of. Why do you feel, from the chamber standpoint, that does make sense?
Sure. So we are our philosophy is we're pro-business. That means we are pro-B. It doesn't matter if you have an R or a D behind your name. It's anyone that's willing to work for the betterment of our community. And it's a symbiotic relationship between our residential and our business community needs. So if you look at the Greater Topeka Chamber Political Action Committee, which is also affiliated with us loosely, they endorsed 10 in totality for the state level. And that was 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans. So we're really not looking at party. We're looking at those individuals that understand the needs and the areas that we feel could best serve. And when we look at, access to health here. And we've really shaped that to look like healthy and thriving communities. That means providing those services to the most vulnerable, addressing mental health challenges, but behavioral health, but then also making healthcare accessible. That could be in the form of Medicaid expansion. It could also be in what additional ways can hospitals band together, or what other types of programs can be created to fill that. And there are some that have been seen in other states, and even some that were pitched last session alone.
A lot to keep an eye on. A few seconds left. What does the future look like for economic development in the Topeka area this year ahead? Do you have anything you can? Are there announcements in store?
I can't say anything. You know, you need my Molly Howie is our counterpart for Go Topeka, and the chamber really represents economic development, tourism, and chamber business interests. Essentially, what I can say is it's a hotbed. We have so much interest here in Kansas. Super excited for it. Stay tuned for chamber business to government types of programs. So we have a Topeka Day at the Capitol the end of February. We also have the first annual legislative fish fry. If you didn't know, catfish is the fish for it's the fish for the state of Kansas. So that's what we'll be having, and just a lot of opportunities for businesses to connect with those elected officials at the state level.
Okay, we will stay tuned for all of those. Juliet, thank you so very much.
Thanks
Appreciate
for having
you
me.
connecting. We're already seeing bill hearings and debates get underway, so we will see where those priorities go as we move through the legislative session over the next weeks and months. Looking back a little bit, we are still in the thick of winter, and in a recent cold snap during the month of January, the Topeka Rescue Mission Ministries and various community partners launched efforts to open up some warming centers. They were open for several days as temperatures and wind chills kept dipping below zero, taking care of those in our community who are unsheltered and might not otherwise have a place to go. TRM Executive Director LaManda Broyles visited us to kind of recap how those efforts went, and also to explain what the policies and procedures are moving forward. At the time of our conversation, there was another day or so of cold weather, extreme cold in the forecast. The warming centers were not going to reactivate through TRM at that time, and she kind of explained how that all works. TRM Director LaManda Broyles is here to tell us how it went and also to look ahead, because LaManda, we saw Jeremy's forecast. It is going to be bitterly cold again.
Yes.
Will you activate warming centers or explain what the decision-making process is like?
Sure. You know, that's kind of twofold. One, the warming centers, Melissa, are really in extreme cases where there's multiple element factors. For instance, in order to activate the warming centers, we're looking at, do we have concerns with wind chills, temperatures, precipitation, all of those in one. So if it's just cold or it's just one of the other, we really rely on what's called the cold weather rules for the Topeka Rescue Mission. That's been in existence for as long as I can remember, where people are eligible to come in from a certain period at night and stay the next morning and stay warm.
And that's outside of maybe loosening some of the typical restrictions that you
Correct.
might have?
Yes,
Okay.
we lift those restrictions so that people do have a place to go for times where it's not as elevated as what would activate a warming center.
So that will be in place during the extreme cold that we're going to see.
And has been,
Okay,
yes.
so what other elements would have to happen in order for a warming center activation to take place?
You know, we really look at what type of precipitation are we getting and when. So for instance, if we get a lot of hail, sleet, even rain, sometimes before the temperatures drop, that is extremely crucial, because that can destroy structures. The weight of snow or rain or things like that, when it's all the time, can collapse things for our unsheltered neighbors. And then if the temperatures drop, they've got two different issues there. And so we really do look at wind chill levels, we look at temperatures, we look at precipitation. And then the last thing that we do is we also look at, are we able to launch outreach teams? And many of times, if it's just one of those issues, we're still able to launch our teams to check on people, get them to safety and such. If it's all of those, that's a concern, because we're also not able to get the advocates out, and that's why we need warming centers.
So rain followed by sleet, followed by 50-mile-an-hour winds and 14
Yes.
inches of snow, kind of was the
Absolutely.
perfect storm, if you will, to
Yes.
get the warming centers up and running.
Yes.
What was different this year, this January, in getting those warming centers up and running versus last January that seemed to allow the process to really kind of just flow this time around?
Yes. So knowing that we were probably going to hit these, whether or not it's a polar vortex or just the concern in general, we were going to have this happen again. And knowing that we had incredible support by partners and other community members, we thought this is something that I think our community is going to allow us to do. We all believe in this, and we want to make it happen. And so we started having meetings internally back in July and August of let's update our manual. Where are we at? Who still wants to be at the table? Who wasn't at the table that we need to bring in? All of that was happening when it was 110 degrees. And so then we started activating our external partners back in September and October with surveys and meetings at the Children's Palace. So I think we were able to act quicker because we know who was willing to do what. And our partners were incredible. They followed through with what they said they would.
And I don't want to miss anyone, but you did have incredible partnership in Vallejo and Let's Help and Fellowship High Crest and True Vine. Is there anyone I missed there?
Central Park Christian Church, yes. And then we also had United Way of Kaw Valley. Jackie there and Susie with TRM, they manage all of the volunteer signups and are communicating when volunteers were saying, we're iced into the driveway and we can't get out, those kinds of things. We also had just incredible individuals such as John Ironman Cantrell was helping me multiple times through midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, doing transportation and other needs that were there. Richard Martinez with Street Ministry. He was doing everything from transportation to being a coordinator for some of the sites.
Street Dog Coalition brought in pets.
Yes.
So how many people in pets, real quick, in the final seconds did you help?
About 169 individuals just in the warming centers, 31 pets, and that was all on top of the 270 staying in the shelters.
A lot of people got a lot of help and were blessed with a warm place to stay. LaManda, thank you. Always good to hear about the efforts, and thank you to everyone who assisted through volunteering, donating, and all the great partners. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, in the cold snap over this past week, there was one Topeka church that opened up a warming center for one day and night. They did report that they cared for 47 people in that time, and a demand that really exceeded what they were equipped to handle. So these community discussions, we also had the point in time count of the homeless over this past week, which will get a snapshot of, are there more homeless people in the capital city than there were a year ago? They had counts last year in the winter and the summer that found roughly the same number. We should know this count, the results of it, in a few weeks, we hope, and that could perhaps inform some of these conversations going forward. What is the need for warming centers? How often should we open them? Do we need to kind of revisit how all of this works? And we will be following those discussions right along with all of you. We want to turn our attention to mental health. Of course, WIBW TV continues the Hear Me, See Me initiative for mental health awareness. You may have caught the Hear Me, See Me podcast, which is in partnership with that program. There is Vallejo Behavioral Health is responsible for some mental health first aid classes. People can arrange for these to happen in their workplace. There are various community sessions. The next free community mental health first aid session is coming up in February. Vallejo's Mickey Bircher visited to tell us about it. Welcome, Mickey. You are with Vallejo Behavioral Health. We did a podcast really diving into this issue here a few weeks ago. You can see it on WIBW.com/hearmesee-me. But you're going to offer this for free now. Mental health first aid. In a nutshell, what is it?
It is a course, like you said, just like with CPR, it teaches us what to do if someone's having a physical health crisis. Mental health first aid is what do we do? What are we looking for to know if someone's having a mental health crisis or a mental health challenge? And we teach you what to do and what to look out for.
So the very first thing the class, I imagine, starts with is what to look for. Because is it always obvious?
No, it's not always obvious. We think about there are certain things that are stereotypical about having a mental health challenge, maybe being sad a lot or withdrawing. But sometimes the mental health signs and symptoms that we see are not what we think. So overworking, going to the gym too much and overworking our bodies, or sleeping too much, even though sleep is very good for us, if we're sleeping too much or too little. So it's not always obvious signs or symptoms, which is why this class is such an asset to the community, so we can figure out what exactly we're looking for.
And then after we know the signs, what do you teach about from there?
Yeah, we have a 5-step plan. It's called the Algae Action Plan. We went in depth about it on that podcast, but we teach this kind of 5 different paths we could take to start a conversation and then really encourage that person to get help from whoever they're comfortable getting help from. So really what we are teaching is how do we start the conversation with them, and then where do we go from there and get them connected with appropriate resources.
I know sometimes when you've offered this class and talked about this class in the past, you talk about some pre-work people need to do and all that kind of thing. in this session, what is the time demand? Is there anything we need to do beforehand to prepare, or is everything going to take place that day?
I'm so glad you brought that up. Based on community feedback, we made some changes. So this is the first time since I have been an instructor, we are offering a tech-free class. So I do ask for registration because it helps me make sure I have enough materials. But when you just show up and everything you need to do is completed in class. Now that does mean it's longer. So in the past, those classes have only been 7 hours. This class will be from 8 a.m. till 5:30 p.m. But you don't have to do anything on a computer. You show up, you do everything in class, and you walk out with a printed certificate from me at the end of class, as long as you pass all of your tests. So it is a little different, but it is going to allow people who maybe don't have access to computers or reliable internet to be able to take this course.
Why do you recommend people do this?
I think that we all are aware of mental health challenges and that we maybe know somebody or we think somebody might be having a mental health challenge, but a lot of people are really uncomfortable talking about it. And so this is really an opportunity just to learn how to open up the conversation and then to make sure that you know how to help that person if they want your help. It's just a really good tool to have in your toolkit to help with any role that you may be in, whether it's at work, with a friend or family member, out in the community. Knowing these skills is just really beneficial to our community as a whole, and especially beneficial to people who are close to you.
Well, let's put up the information on the screen and grab your phone, open the photo app, because there's a QR code right here if you want to register that takes you right to this. The free community mental health first aid class is coming up February 10th at the Vallejo offices. They're at 330 Southwest Oakley. If you don't get this QR code because you're not very QR code savvy like me, then you can just go to vallejotopeka.org, click on the events tab, and it is right there. Like Mickey said, everything happens right that day. No advanced pre-homework to take part in this. Mickey, very valuable information. We appreciate you coming in and letting us know about the free class coming up.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Stay warm. So if you're interested in these classes, attend the free community session or reach out to Vallejo to find out how you can bring one into your workplace or organization. Also, having the conversation continue regarding mental health issues is the Flint Hills Wellness Coalition. They recently held a town hall meeting. Ahead of that town hall meeting, which has since taken place, we invited Debbie Nuss with the Flint Hills Wellness Coalition, and Ashley Delahanty is she's the Community and Partnerships Coordinator with the Eastern Kansas VA Health System. We invited them to come in and kind of bring us up to date on the conversations that have been taking place around mental health in the Flint Hills region, that Manhattan Junction City area. So as part of this conversation previewing the town hall, they kind of told us what some of the things they have been learning are in their community. Welcome to both of you. This town hall meeting, Debbie, has been kind of a long time coming. What's been going on that led up to now, this town hall?
The town hall meeting really is a culmination of the work that started with the Riley County Health Department's Community Health Improvement Plan a couple of years ago, where mental health was identified as one of the top concerns in the community. And as a result of that, identifying that as a top concern, the Wellness Coalition with the Health Department in October of 2023 held the first local mental health system assessment, where about 70 community members came together and talked about what they saw as the strengths and weaknesses and the gaps in services in our local mental health system.
Was there any big headline of what the gap was?
There were concerns about lack of mental health providers in the area, long wait times in terms of people being able to get appointments, and just the overall sometimes lack of coordination in the mental health system. Also just the recognition that mental health is one of those social determinants of health, then that things like housing and transportation, food insecurity, all those things are interrelated and impact one another. So an individual that may be having some mental health challenges likely is having some other challenges as well.
How involved and what are the special concerns then for the VA, Ashley, as you played a role in the Mental Health Coalition here? Because I imagine the Manhattan area in particular, Flint Hills region, there are a lot of veterans, a lot of active duty military there.
Yes, there are. And I became involved as the mental health needs assessment was actually starting. And part of my role is to actually become involved within the community to address what veteran service members and their families need. So the VA, of course, wants to serve our veterans, but we can't do that just within the four walls of the VA. We really need to be looking at what's happening in the community in order to be able to meet their needs even outside of the VA. especially for those family members who are also supports. They are accessing mental health services in the community. And so, the VA has really taken an active role in becoming more involved in the coalition and some of these other community efforts in order to improve these situations.
Again, that town hall meeting has already taken place, but keep touching base with the Flint Hills Wellness Coalition. They have a website. You can check in with them if you'd like to take part in future activities and learn more about the initiatives and conversations that they have had regarding mental health and wellness. We also want you to know that you can find the video from all of these conversations and all of our guests that visit Eye on Northeast Kansas on WIBW.com. You can also find links on my Facebook page, WIBW Melissa Bruner, along with our selfies in the studio, our studio selfies, to give you a little bit of a behind the scenes look. Again, if you'd like to watch the show live, streaming on WIBW.com Monday through Friday, 4 o'clock Central Time, you also can find things on our YouTube channel, our WIBW TV YouTube channel. Be sure to click subscribe while you're there. Glad to have you along with us on the podcast this week. Until next time, we'll see you on the Red Couch.